Manchester United boss Erik Ten Hag's job is intact, at least for now, according to The Athletic. This is a good, interesting update that I'm here to give you. Welcome to the United Hotspot. Now, you've got to like, subscribe, and share because obviously the most anticipated thing now is the job of Erik Ten Hag, whether he's going to be sacked or not. That's what people are waiting for every minute. Now, here is the latest one coming through is that Ineos have been forced to buy time with Erik Ten Hag. They want to go into a meeting with him and review the season objectively. And based on their review, of course, remember we performed terribly in the Champions League. We finished, I think, the second, worst position in the history of perhaps Man United in the Premier League. We consider, I think, the second most goals of all clubs. It's bad. It's bad. We had a negative goal difference. There are certain things that went so bad, but there are things that are positive because we won an FA Cup title. Erik Ten Hag has got a record for himself that I'm going to show you in a bit in terms of how he rates with former Manchester United bosses post Sir Alex Ferguson, and you will see why he rates highly among them. So Ineos are saying they're going to first let him go on a rest, probably go on leave somewhere in Ibiza or Macau or wherever he will go. And they let him enjoy himself with his family. It's been really a terrible season for him. So much pressure, media pressure, speculations, and all. So they are going to let him first let him go and enjoy himself. Then after that, he will come back and they will go into proper talks with him to try and look at the season and reflect on it, review it, and based on that to decide whether to part ways with him or not. Now they say that is bound to happen in a week or two. Now, so many things will be looked at in that review. Of course, they will look at what he had in plan in detail because remember, Ineos came in the middle of the season that Erik Ten Hag was focused on, and they didn't want to give up on it. And in fact, that was good because had they given up on it, then I don't think we would have won the FA Cup. But Erik Ten Hag was always focused on the season, saying there are things to salvage. And indeed, Manchester United has qualified for Europe, knocking out Newcastle, and Manchester United will be playing in the Europa League and pushing Chelsea in the Conference League. So it shows you that the guys have achieved in certain things. So Ineos are saying they want to review that season objectively and see whether or not to keep Erik Ten Hag. Now, this is Erik Ten Hag's performance compared to the post managers after Sir Alex Ferguson, the other managers, the guys who are not interim, but the guys who are fully trusted as managers. Of course, you can say Ralf Rangnick was a bit interim, but I think his spell would be considered more. It was more of I think, a guy who led the transition. Ralf Rangnick set the grounds for Erik Ten Hag's arrival. Probably he's the one who recommended him to be brought by the Glazers then. But Erik Ten Hag has managed 114 games, won 68, drawn 15, and lost 32, a win percentage of 60%. Then he has won the League Cup and the FA Cup. Now compare him to all other coaches after Sir Alex Ferguson. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer managed 149 games, won 78, drew 33, and lost 38, win percentage of 52. Louis van Gaal managed 103 games, won 54, drew 24, lost 25, a win percentage of 52, same as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Rajnik is negligible. Jose Mourinho, 144 games, won 84, drew 31, lost 29, a win percentage of 58. Then David Moyes had a win percentage of 51. Now Moyes won a League Cup and Europa. Then he won the League Cup and then the Community Shield. That's Jose Mourinho. I think Jose Mourinho won a lot. I think he's the one we can compare to Erik Ten Hag. Then David Moyes, win percentage of 51%. In 151 games, he won 26. How is that even 51% winning rate, win percentage? Interesting. But yeah, that's how Erik Ten Hag compares to other managers. Now, you clearly see that he's the best of the lot. And that alone gives Ineos reason to be patient with him and try to talk to him and find a sober way of dealing with him. This is what I expect, honestly, from those talks. Now, if Ineos have already made up their mind on sacking him, if United had lost terribly in the FA Cup final, I think the obvious thing would be Erik Ten Hag would be sacked immediately because probably they've already made their decision. If it's to sack him, they've already made it. But the fact that he won the FA Cup the way he did, they have got to buy time by going into a review and perhaps in that review, corner him into things he may not be able to agree to. For example, because there are so many ways to kill a rat, there are so many ways to get rid of a manager you don't want, and it's clear. Ineos, I told you, seeing the body language of Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they are not really moved by Erik Ten Hag, despite him winning the FA Cup. They also probably want to be their own men and bring their own person, and take all the credit for themselves. Because if Erik Ten Hag, is the guy who is going to lead Man United to the right future you want, then the Glazers will have a fine share of that, of the bragging rights because they hired him. So Ineos might want, understandably, to say we want to do our own thing our way. So here's what I think would happen in those talks. And the expectation for me is that if Ineos have indeed made up their mind on him, they will force him to part ways with them by bringing conditions that they know he will not adhere to. Because with the performance of Erik Ten Hag, with his past performance at United in the first 2 seasons, he has certainly got standards as a manager. He's a high-profile manager. He knows he's wanted by so many clubs. He will certainly want to set his own standards and say, I want this or I'm out. Now, if Ineos can't give him that, he will probably, walk away. So what Ineos could do, remember Ineos have clearly come out before and stated that they want a head coach, not a manager. I'm not sure Erik Ten Hag by character will really be, happy being a head coach. That is sort of being, downgraded unless he's that flexible, which I don't think so. You can tell from his coaching methods. The same thing with Pochettino and why he left Chelsea. He had demands that the club were saying that that's not the direction they're taking. Now, my thinking is out of that meeting, if they want to let go of Erik Ten Hag, it will be a more amiable way of parting ways. They will corner him with conditions he can't bend down to, and then they will come up with a statement that they have mutually agreed to part ways. They release a statement that they have mutually agreed to part ways. And I've said it before personally that if ever Man United is to let go of Erik Ten Hag, it should be a case of parting ways, not being sacked. They should part ways with him. And now, more than ever, the fact that he won the FA Cup, it is even clear now. You cannot just sack him. On what grounds? Part ways because you do not agree on direction. That's okay. That we want to do things this way as Ineos. Erik Ten Hag says, me, my standards, this is how I work, and I'm stuck to my guns. This is how I want to slide. Now, it's okay then to part ways. I don't think anyone will come out here and say, Ineos this, Ineos that. I think we'll just be okay and say, okay, you know what? They are the new guys in charge. They own the football of the club. Let's trust them to do things their way. If this manager doesn't want to dance to their tunes, it's okay. They can part ways. So that is, for me, my prediction of what would come out of that meeting. They won't sack Erik Ten Hag, but they would force him to agree to part ways with him. They will give him conditions he won't, buy into. So, but at least it gives him a bit of breather. I think he needed it. Imagine coming from that very terrible season, you win the FA Cup the way he did. The fans are happy, and the next day Ineos are saying he's been sacked. I think that would be so immature. I think it would be Ineos getting off on a bad start with Man United. I think it would be inhuman. I think it would be extremely unprofessional of Ineos. People would indeed lose trust in Ineos and how they operate, which would be bad for whatever they're trying to do, because the same problems that we had with the Glazers, they lost the trust of the supporters, are the same problems Ineos will be starting with. So they should be fine. There are ways to get rid of Erik Ten Hag. And now for me, it's a matter of Ineos now creatively finding ways of doing that. If they want to do things a certain way, that they don't think Erik Ten Hag is the man to do that with them. Which, in all fairness, I think that's football for you. If it were you, put yourself in Ineos' shoes. You come through after so many years of some guys struggling. You come and you pay so much money to take the football, and then you find this manager bought by the same guys who had failed before. Do you leave him in charge? Do you? I think it is okay. It's normal for you to want to have your own manager who will do things your way, who will listen to you, who will have objectives set by you, with whom you will start. And when it works, you take all the credit. If it doesn't, because the thing is, if Ineos stick with Erik Ten Hag now, and for some reason it doesn't work, Ineos will still be blamed after 3 years because they gave themselves 3 years. They promised us 3 years to make it happen. If in any case it doesn't work, and there's no guarantee that it will, people will not listen. People will go and attack Ineos for not changing anything because they just continue doing things the same way as the Glazers used to do. So would you blame them if they pull the plug on the guy and bring in their man with whom they will be accountable fully if it doesn't work? I don't think it would be right to blame them. So that's exactly what's going on. But it will take at least a week. This week that starts today, or the next week. In the next 2 weeks, we will know what they will do after that review. For now, Erik Ten Hag should be certainly going on to have a break with his family. But of course, it won't be a long one because he has got to come back and get things happening because Ineos and new guys in town. The players, I saw Casemiro is away with his family. He didn't even attend the after party after the win of the FA Cup victory. Certain players are already moving on with their lives. And that I think for me is clear that Casemiro perhaps might not return and could be continuing all the way to Qatar, or Saudi Arabia, wherever the interest is. But I think for me, it's a better way. It's a more humane way to deal with it, and probably to bring calm among the Man United faithful. My name is Webb. This is the United Hotspot. Subscribe. That's the update on the Erik Ten Hag job. Be patient for a decision from Ineos.